Hey everyone, welcome back to Kawaii Craft. Today I'm going to show you how to make a Majora's mask.
And to do this, I got this plate from Walmart around Valentine's, and I took some newspaper and stuffed it to make it like a rounded top, because I cannot find a round, heart-shaped bowl for the life of me. So if you can find a heart-shaped bowl, that'll work, or you can get a plate like this and do what I did. And I covered it in duct tape and then covered that in saran wrap and began adding my paper mache around the entire heart. And you're going to want to do a couple layers of this. Do maybe a layer and let it dry, and then do another layer, let it dry, and so on until you think it's about thick enough that you can pop it off. Because you want this to be thick so that it doesn't crumble as you're painting it, because the paint will add a little bit of water and could make it go back into the paper form, which you don't want. So just make sure it's nice and thick, and then you can pop it off and trim the edges because you don't want any sharp edges. And then I just cover mine up with a little piece of paper mache the whole way around. That way I can make sure that I'm not going to get cut on any edges. The next thing I do is take a small piece of cardstock and I roll 10 of these cone shapes, and I cover those with saran wrap. And I'm going to go ahead and Mod Podge those. And you're going to want to Mod Podge those with maybe about 3 or 4 layers, because you do want these to be thick. That way when you put them onto your mask, they don't crumble. I also found this ferret toy at the dollar store, or cat toy at the dollar store, that I gave to my ferrets, but I found that it's like the perfect shape for the eye. So I covered that in saran wrap and I began paper macheing that. You can find something of the same size and it'll work just as well. Next thing I do is trim that after I've done a few layers, and I just paper mache it to the mask exactly where I want it to be. And you're going to want to make sure you do a couple layers of this so that it doesn't come off. Next thing I do is I cut my cones and I make sure one end is a lot shorter than the other, and I go ahead and I paper mache that on. The reason you need one end to be shorter than the other is because it is a round shape, so you want it to kind of meet flush right up to the other piece of paper mache. And you're going to do this with your other cones as well. You have 2 large ones at the top and 8 around the sides. And once that's finished, you're going to need some yarn, and using your paper mache glue mix, go ahead and do the designs around the eyes. And you're going to need to do the design that goes around that part as well. I didn't get it on camera. I think something happened and the camera turned off. And then Mod Podge over that. Once that dries, you're going to want to paint your mask completely white. It'll make it easier to do the rest of the designs, and then paint over the part where you did the yarn with the paper mache over it, and that's going to be black. Don't worry if you go over and it's not straight, because you'll be painting over that again and you can fix that up later. The next thing I do is I paint the eyes completely yellow. We're going to be painting over this, but this makes a base coat. Then I take a red color and I go around the edges of the eye. It's like a orange color, it's not completely red. And then I go ahead and sponge on this with like a paintbrush, a darker yellow, and then I continue down, adding a little bit more orange each time until I get to the red, and it should look something like this. It's like a gradient look. And you're going to want to do this fast so that it remains wet, so you can push the paint around and it'll dry really nicely. Then what I do is I take a dark red and go around the trim again. Next, you're going to draw on the pupil with some black paint, and then paint that in, leaving a little trim with lime green, and once again with the black paint again. Then you can paint the inner part of the mask red inside that black trim. You're going to want to do 2 or 3 layers. I believe I did 3, because you can still kind of see the white through it, and you want it to be a really dark red color. Next, I take some green paint and I do the sides in this green paint. Both sides are going to be the same. And the top part of the mask is like this violet blue. It's hard to mix the color. I actually did mix violet with blue, and it took me a long time to get this perfect color. But it's like a dark purple with a hint of blue in it. You're also going to want to do a few layers of that. Next, you're going to do the top horns of the mask, and you're going to do them much like you did the eyes, where you're going to have the yellow, and then you're going to start with a darker color and of yellow and go down until the bottom is like a red orangey. And then the top 2 side horns, I don't know what you would call them, spikes, horns, they're going to be done the same way. A darker red at the bottom, gradient up to yellow. The next one is more red, so it's going to be red with a little bit of yellow peeking through in the gradient the way that you do it. And then the next one is going to start with green and go down to like a lighter green, like a yellow-green color. And the last 2 are going to be a blue that go down to a green color. You're just going to have to work with it. I'm not a very good painter, so I don't know how to explain it completely, but it'll work better if you have like a sponge. I didn't, so I just used my paintbrush. Next thing, you're going to take some blue paint and paint these 2 little triangles on the side here, and then take white and you're going to follow the trim, leaving like maybe a 1/4 inch in between. You're going to do that on both sides, and then you're going to do one in the middle like this with the white trim. And up on top, you do this sort of trimmy thing, and then it looks like an arrow on the top of the head. I do the middle dots with puffy paint, that way it has like a texture and it sticks out from the mask. And then the last part is you're going to paint these triangles around the eyes. Now, I did draw my designs on with pencil before. It helped me to follow them. So you could do that as well. I just didn't show that in the picture because it's easier to show you with the paint because you can't see the pencil exactly. And then you're going to paint these orange markings around the horns at the top. There you can see it better. And you're going to need to do a few layers of that because the purple is really dark and you want the orange to stand through because it is a contrasting color. And here is what mine looks like once it's all dry. And what I did when I finished it, to keep the paint in, I did put a couple layers of the Mod Podge paint, Mod Podge glue that I had made in a previous video on top. But there you have it, guys. There's my Majora's Mask. Thanks for watching.